The probe taps along your gums, then the pause, then the number, bigger than last time. The hygienist keeps her voice flat. The dentist used to soften it. He stopped softening that 2 visits ago. You leave with a printed sheet that says periodontal monitoring. You drive home, you tuck the sheet behind the cereal boxes so your wife does not see it. Or maybe you tell her right away. Either way, something has shifted, and you know it. What most people do not realize, and what almost nobody explains in plain language at the front desk on the way out, is that the inflammation in your gums is not staying there. It enters the bloodstream, quietly, steadily, every time you eat, every time you brush, every time the tissue is even mildly irritated. Once it is in the bloodstream, it joins something the body is already carrying after 60, a persistent, low-grade inflammatory load that researchers now call inflammaging. A word coined by Italian gerontologist Claudio Franceschi in 2000. Inflammation plus aging, the quiet engine underneath most of what we call getting older. This is the angle James never expected to hear from his dentist. James is 72, retired electrician from Akron, 41 years of pulling cable through walls that were never meant to be opened. His knees are loud now, his back is slow, but the thing his dentist had been circling for 2 years was something he had stopped paying attention to until he could not. His gum pockets had been deepening, slowly, for 6 visits in a row. He brushed, he flossed, he used the mouthwash they sold at the front desk. Nothing was getting better. At the end of his last cleaning, his dentist did something unusual. He sat down on the small stool, leaned forward, and said something James did not expect to hear from a dentist. He said, "Before we go to a referral, try this. 2 whole dried cloves, the spice, not garlic, every morning, chewed slowly, after a glass of warm water, 3 weeks. Then come back and let me see your gums." James went home and bought a small bag of whole dried cloves at the grocery store on the way, in the spice aisle next to cinnamon and nutmeg. He put them in a glass jar on the counter. $3.78. He started the next morning. Before going any further, a word that always belongs in a conversation like this. Nothing here replaces a conversation with your own physician. Your doctor knows your history. Your dentist knows your mouth. Anything new, even something that grows on a tree, deserves a quick mention at your next visit. Now, the practical part first, because the science only matters once you know what you are actually doing. 2 whole dried cloves. Clove buds, the aromatic spice you find in the baking aisle. Not ground, not powdered, whole, intact, looking like tiny dark nails with the head still attached. Morning after a glass of warm water, before or alongside a light meal. Chew them slowly, let them sit in the mouth, let the eugenol oil release into the saliva, swallow when they have softened. That is the entire mechanic. 30 seconds, less than $1 a week. The reason whole cloves matter, and ground does not, is the speed of release. Whole cloves dissolve their compounds gradually as you chew, gentle on the stomach lining, sustained absorption. Ground cloves dump everything fast, they can irritate, and they miss the contact time with the mouth tissue that turns out to matter so much. The warm water before is not a ritual. It prepares the digestive tract, it softens the moment of contact. People who skip the warm water, especially in the early weeks, sometimes notice a sting or a slight burn. People who do the warm water do not. Now the science. And the reason this is not just another spice on a wellness list, the active compound in cloves is eugenol, a phenylpropanoid, an aromatic plant compound that exists in trace amounts in cinnamon and basil, and in very large amounts in the dried flower bud of the clove tree. When researchers measure antioxidant capacity using the ORAC scale, the Oxygen Radical Absorbance Capacity scale developed at the National Institute on Aging, cloves land in a range almost no other food reaches. Cloves outpace wild blueberries. They outpace dark cocoa. They sit above turmeric and pomegranate by a substantial margin. Gram for gram, cloves are not in the same league as those foods. They are in their own league. But raw antioxidant capacity is the smaller part of the story. The bigger part is what eugenol does when it meets a specific enzyme inside your body, an enzyme called cyclooxygenase 2, usually shortened to COX-2. COX-2 is the engine of inflammation. When the body wants to mount an inflammatory response, it produces this enzyme. The enzyme then drives the cascade that creates swelling, pain, redness, fluid. Useful when you sprain an ankle. Quiet trouble when it is running constantly in the background of an aging body. Anti-inflammatory medications you already know, ibuprofen, naproxen, work by inhibiting COX-2. That is the whole reason they ease pain. Here is the part that surprises most people. Eugenol works on the same pathway, same enzyme, same mechanism, through a whole food source, at a low daily dose. The difference matters enormously when you are 65 and your kidneys are not what they were. Long-term daily ibuprofen carries real costs: stomach lining damage, kidney strain, cardiovascular concerns. None of those are theoretical for an older adult on multiple medications. Eugenol at 2 cloves daily does not carry the same risk profile for most healthy people. That is not a claim it replaces medication. It is a real distinction worth knowing. Now, blood sugar, because here the research has gotten specific. One of eugenol's documented effects is on insulin sensitivity, the cell's ability to respond to the insulin signal and pull glucose out of the bloodstream. As we age, that responsiveness commonly fades. Cells get a little harder of hearing. Glucose lingers. Fasting numbers creep up. Hemoglobin A1C drifts. The path from drift to prediabetes to type 2 is the most common health trajectory in American adults over 65. Multiple published studies across the past 15 years have looked at eugenol's role in glucose metabolism and insulin response. The mechanisms are still being mapped. The pattern is consistent enough that integrative medicine clinics now mention it without flinching. For James, the gum story was just the entry. What surprised him 3 months in was something he had stopped expecting to see. His fasting glucose, which had been hovering at 112 for a couple of years, dropped to 98. He had not changed his diet. He had not started new medications. He had added 2 cloves to his morning. There is a third compound in cloves that almost never gets covered: manganese. 2 whole cloves contain a meaningful percentage of your daily manganese requirement. Manganese is one of those minerals that does not announce itself, but quietly supports a long list of operations the body depends on: bone formation, collagen synthesis, the enzymes that handle blood sugar, and one of your primary cellular antioxidant systems, superoxide dismutase, which runs on manganese as a cofactor. Most adults over 60 are mildly deficient in manganese without knowing it. When you chew 2 cloves a day, you are also handing your body a small, steady supply of this mineral. In the whole food form, it actually recognizes. This is part of why the effect of 2 cloves daily seems broader than a single supplement. You are not delivering one isolated compound. You are delivering a small system. Eugenol for the inflammatory and insulin pathways, manganese for the antioxidant and metabolic enzymes, a handful of trace polyphenols that keep showing up in longevity research. What people actually report week to week is the part most viewers care about. So let me walk you through what James noticed in order, because it tracks with what hundreds of others have described. Week 1, almost nothing. The taste is the main event. Aromatic, a little numbing. He said the first few mornings he chewed slowly because he was not sure what he had agreed to. By day 4, he barely thought about it. Week 2, the gum tissue. His gums were less sore in the mornings. He had not realized they had been faintly sore until the soreness was gone. He noticed a different kind of cleanness in the mouth, especially in the back where the bristles never quite reach. Week 3, the surprise nobody warned him about. He woke up without that particular feeling of needing to drag his body into the day. The mornings were just mornings. No production, no negotiation. He thought it was the weather. Then it kept happening. Week 4 through 6, the slower shifts. Less afternoon drag, better sleep, easier digestion after evening meals. Nothing dramatic. Nothing he would have gone to a doctor about. Small absences of small irritations he had stopped registering. These are reported patterns, not promises. Everybody is different. Every history is different. Your own experience may be slower, may be faster, may skip some of these and add others. The pattern matters because it shows up consistently across hundreds of older adults doing the same simple thing, not because any one person's story predicts yours. If part of your brain just said, I have heard this kind of thing before. That is a fair response. Apple cider vinegar had its big year, turmeric had its decade, ginger, raw garlic, cinnamon, all of them got their 15 minutes. Most of them produced quiet underwhelm. The reason cloves keep showing up in serious research is narrower than the trend cycle. The COX-2 pathway is not a wellness theory. It is the same pharmacology your physician relies on every day. Eugenol works on it quietly, at a low dose, through a whole food over weeks, not days. The slow, steady ones are the ones that show up on a lab sheet 3 months later. The dramatic ones are the ones that fade by week 2. Cloves are the slow kind. That is also why the science is taking them seriously now. A few people genuinely should not start this without a conversation first. If you take a blood thinner, warfarin, clopidogrel, anything in that family, eugenol's mild anticoagulant effect is small but real. Your doctor needs to know. If you are on insulin or sulfonylureas for diabetes, the same insulin sensitizing effect that helps stable cases can drive low readings in someone whose medication is already pushing glucose down. That conversation is worth having before, not after. If you have surgery on the calendar in the next 2 weeks, postpone any new supplement until after recovery. Surgery is the wrong moment to be introducing anything that touches the clotting system, even mildly. For the vast majority of healthy adults over 60 with no complicating medications, 2 whole cloves daily lands well inside safe parameters. Your physician deserves to know. The conversation in James's case became the most useful piece of his last visit. There is one bigger frame around all of this that the research is starting to confirm, a frame longevity scientists have been circling for 30 years. The speed at which we age at the cellular level is shaped by 2 things more than almost anything else: oxidative stress, chronic inflammation. Both of them shorten the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes. Telomeres. Think of them like the small metal ferrule that holds the eraser in place at the end of a pencil. When the ferrule wears down, the pencil cannot hold the eraser anymore. When the telomere shortens past a critical point, the cell cannot divide and replicate properly. That is not a metaphor for aging, that is one of the literal mechanisms. Eugenol works against both of those processes: antioxidant capacity, inflammation reduction. A review published in the journal Nutrients found that consistent, long-term intake of dietary polyphenols, the family eugenol belongs to, was associated with measurably slower rates of biological aging at the cellular level. 2 cloves a day will not stop aging. Be honest about that. What the research keeps telling us is that small daily inputs add up, not because any single one is powerful, because chronic inflammation is relentless and cumulative. Every day you push back is a day the engine is running a little quieter. James went back to his dentist at the 4-week mark, then at the 3-month mark. At 4 weeks, the dentist said the gum tissue looked calmer, less reactive. The pockets had not closed, but they had not deepened either. At 3 months, 2 of the deeper pockets had measurably reduced. The dentist set his hands on his lap, looked at James and said, "You are doing something different," James told him. He told him. The dentist nodded slowly. He said, "I am putting that in the notes." A note before the close: have a brief conversation with your own doctor or dentist if you are starting this. Your physician knows your medications, your dentist knows your mouth. Both of them deserve a heads up. That is not a legal disclaimer. That is the practical step that makes this work the way you want it to. Here is what to carry with you. 2 whole cloves every morning after a glass of warm water. Chew them slowly. Give it 3 full weeks before you decide, not 3 days. 3 weeks. Watch what shifts. Your gums, your morning movement, your digestion, your energy through the afternoon, your numbers at your next visit. What the research keeps confirming is something quieter than the wellness world likes to admit. The body after 60 is not done responding. It still adapts. It still rewards consistency. It still moves in better directions when you give it the right small thing every day. That is worth holding on to, not just for cloves, as a way of thinking about everything that comes after. If this gave you something useful, send it to someone who needs it. A father whose dentist has been raising flags for 2 visits in a row. a sister whose blood sugar has been creeping, someone who has been handed a pamphlet and left to figure it out alone. Subscribe to Senior Health and Wellness Hub if you have not already. Turn on notifications. The next video pulls on a thread that connects directly to this one. It will land harder if you have watched this one first. 2 cloves, 30 seconds, tomorrow morning. See where you are in 3 weeks.